Hello, welcome to another Capture the Flag edition of Daryl Show Your Work, episode 111 to be exact. All right, so in this episode, I will be attempting to enable the RDP protocol or RDP port post exploitation. So those that have been tracking my video knows that I've covered exploiting the RDP or protocol before, but it was in a different phase of the different phase of exploitation. So it was before when I compromised the RDP protocol it was to gain entry into a system. So what I'm going to be doing here is I'm going to be opening up that protocol that should be closed. I'm going to find see if I can find a target that has a closed RDP port. All right, and I'm going to first compromise that target, and once I'm in, then I'm going to then enable that RDP port for another point of entry into the system. So I have multiple point of entries. Okay. So before I go any further, I'm gonna preface this video with my usual disclaimer that where anytime we're doing any sort of red teaming activities or offensive security activities, I'm going to say that this is for research, educational, ethical purposes only. Any sort of malicious actions that may directly or indirectly come from someone watching this video, I do not take responsibility for, nor do I condone. All right, so a few things before I get started. So to give to give a high level overview of what RDP is, that's short for the Remote Desktop Protocol, and that is Microsoft's proprietary GUI based remote access protocol used to connect and interact with Windows systems. So it usually runs on port 3389 by default, but but also by default is disabled, of course, as you can guess, for security reasons. So I'm going to use a Metasploit module to enable it and remotely connect to the target host after post exploitation. So it's not going to be my first point of entry. It's going to be another point of entry. So again, I have multiple doors open or attack vectors exposed in order to gain access to the system. Okay, so I've already done some discovery here, and I have the target host IP address already, which is at 10.3.22.97. All right, so with that done, I'm just going to jump right into the MSF console. All right, so I'm going to get, let me just move this over here. Look like I got to drag it once again today. There we go. Not as much. Okay. All right, so I'm going to start up the PostgresQL um, database, and then combine that with the step to um, to then start up the MSF console, which will take me into the Metasploit framework. All right. All right, I'm going to create a workspace for myself, and I'm going to just simply name this RDP. So I'm going to say workspace A RDP, all caps. All right. And then also, as always, I'm going to set the target host as a global parameter so I don't have to keep entering that in as I go from module to module. It'll be preset for me once I do this. Well, I need to make sure I write the command in the right order. There we go. All right. Now, as I've been doing a lot now, I'm going to actually run mmap within the MSF console, so those results save directly into the Metasploit database, and they update the more enumeration that I do, and I could query those results anytime that I want to. All right, so hold on. Let me just paste that in here. All right, so I'm going to do a service scan of the target IP. And so what I'm doing here is I'm seeing what protocols or services are currently running to see if we can find a RDP port. Hopefully we won't, so we'll know that it is closed. All right, and then depending on what I do next depends on what I find here. So let's see what comes up initially. Taking much longer than anticipated. It shouldn't be much longer here. Okay, there we go. All right, so we see quite a few things running here. We see some SMB related protocols running, excuse me, ports running here with 445 or 139 and 135. And we also see that port 80 is running Badblue dot I mean excuse me version 2 dot 7, which is good. So this is actually going to be my initial point of entry by exploiting the vulnerability associated with this. All right, but ultimately, again, I want to create another port of entry by via RDP. So it's good that we actually don't see any sort of reference to RDP here. But I'm going to actually run another another mmap scan, and I'm going to run an mmap scan that's going to look specifically for this to see if whether or not this port is being filtered by like a firewall or something that would deny traffic to the default port. So I'm going to enter in port 3389, which is the default port of the remote desktop protocol. All right. And that came back really fast. So it's to this we know that it's closed. So it's not necessarily filtered, which is good, excuse me, but it's closed. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do, so I'm going to go with the initial attack vector here, which is on port 80 with the Badblue version 2.7. And again, so to give a high level overview exactly of what that is, I covered this actually in my prior video dealing with the Kiwi app and hash dumping using that. If you want to check that video out, make sure you do. But what Badblue is a web server application that allows users to share files, and the application is prone to multiple remote vulnerabilities, and actually it has a specific CVE associated with it, which is 2007 6377. Okay, so I'm going to search for that. Search for any sort of Badblue related exploitation modules. So I'm gonna just say Badblue. Okay, so we have a couple here, but again, so I want to use a version specific one. So we know it's running version 2.72, which we saw from our mmap scan. So I'm going to choose this second one on the list, which actually has the a module ID of 1. All right, so and this is a buffer overflow based um, um, exploit. So that I guess to give a high level definition of what this is too. So it's basically a stack based buffer overflow in the pass-through functionality in the ext.dll library in the Badblue 2.7b version and earlier versions as well, which allows remote attackers to execute arbitrary code via a long query string. All right, so it matches the typical definition of what you would expect from a buffer overflow, and not really having that input validation that's needed to stop that. All right. So let's try to exploit that. So I'm gonna say use one. All right, and let me see. I'm not gonna set any. Let's see. Well, one thing I do want to do actually is let's pay a visit to that. I want to verify. Another way we could verify that that is using Badblue is just to make a visit to that IP address. So I'm gonna plug that in here, and we can see that Badblue is indeed running. All right, at this IP address. All right, and it's running at the root. All right, so let's go to show options and make sure if there's anything else I need to configure here. All right. So scrolling up a little bit. All right, good. So my R host is already configured there since I set that as a global parameter. And then my R port, of course, is set to 80 since this is a HTTP based exploitation. And everything else is already set. My IP address is set here as the L host. The L port is 4444, which is fine. So it looks like everything's good to go for exploitation. So let's see. I'm gonna say this to make sure that this runs the way it does. I'm gonna say set target to 0, which it should be by default, but I just want to make sure here. All right. So I'm adding this portion right here, and let me just correct that. All right, and let's exploit this. And I should be getting a Meterpreter session from this. And I do have one. All right. All right. So now that I have a connection now with the target host, let's do some enumeration. So first I want to see who I'm logged in as and what my level permissions may be. So I have full system authority, which is great. All right. So that lets me know I can pretty much run any command I want on this system without much restriction. All right. Then I'm gonna do sysinfo to see what type of interpreter session I have here. So it looks like I have a 32-bit session with a 64-bit version of Windows Server 2012 revision 2 operating system. But with this, the Meterpreter version or the Meterpreter architecture doesn't matter as much as in previous exploitations for post exploitations activities that I've done in previous videos. So I won't be migrating to a 64-bit version of that in this video, as this is not really necessary for what I'm looking to do. All right, so I'm going to background this process, and I'm going to begin looking for a module, a post exploitation module that enables the RDP port. Now that we know that it is indeed closed on this target host. So I'm gonna say search, and I'm gonna say enable underscore RDP. All right, we have actually one. All right, Windows manage enable um, remote desktop, and we can see by the the full relative path here that it is a post exploitation module. All right, so I'm gonna just say use 0 since that's the only module ID available. All right, and let's see if there's anything that I need to configure here. Say show options. All right. So of course we want to leave enable to true. Not necessarily doing any sort of port forwarding in this video. In the L port, it is running on 3389 by default, which we did see in our in that nmap scan, that second nmap scan that I ran. I don't have any credentials. That's something that I actually it did gain in that first RDP video where I brute forced my way in. I was a brute forced the credential, excuse me, and was able to get a username and password to then log in with. When in this instance, I'm not looking to do that, so I'm going to leave that blank. And the only thing it looks like that I need to configure here is the session, which we know if I do sessions, I only have one session here, so I'm going to set that session ID to 1. All right, so I'm going to say set session to 1. All right, now when I run this, the expectation is for it to open up the RDP port, and I'm going to test that out as well. All right, so do exploit. It says RDP is already enabled, which we know is not already enabled, but it says then we get something here that says RDP service started. All right, so it looks like that did actually work. All right, so one way I can do this is I could run that mmap scan again, which I'm going to. That's going to look to see if 3389 is now open. All right, so I'm going to run that again. All right, now we can see that port, that RDP port is now open. So as I mentioned in the other RDP video, a lot of times, even if port 3389 is open and is running, a lot of times it's not going to explicitly say RDP. Sometimes it will, but a lot of times it won't. But oftentimes, if it's open, more than likely it is running RDP. It's just a lot of times it's not going to just explicitly say or reference RDP. All right, so but we could test this out just to verify that that is indeed running a RDP. So I'm going to jump back into my Meterpreter session here. All right, so I'm going to say sessions 1 to jump back in. All right, then I'm gonna go. Then I'm gonna execute the shell. It's gonna put me directly in to our target host. All right, so from here, let's see what users are actually on this system. So I'm gonna say net users to get a list of the users here. All right, so we can see that there's only an administrator and a guest account. So more than likely, I am the administrator account since that's the only other um, account on the system. All right, so next, I'm going to change the administrator's password here. So I'm going to say net. So this is an attempt to lock the legitimate administrator out. And remember, I have full system authority, so I can run commands like this. So net user administrator, then I want to change, get that out of here. I want to change, boy, this thing is really acting up today. There we go. Okay, I want to change the password to hacker underscore 1233221. All right, so even though I'm doing this, it's not necessarily recommended to do in real life because more than likely the administrator will know that someone has locked them out of their account, and this would be an obvious like flag for them as an indicator of compromise. All right, so I wouldn't necessarily recommend doing things this way, but for the sake of the video, I'm going to do this, you know, just as a means here for me to have to know the password to the administrator account, and then for me to lock the legitimate administrator out. All right, so all right, that's completed successfully. So I am going to actually let's see, let's terminate this shell session here. Let me say yes. All right, now I'm actually gonna now that I've set that password, because the reason excuse me, I should explain this when I did it. The reason why I changed the password here is one, I didn't know what the original administrative password here was because I didn't enter into the system by legitimate means. So I'm actually going to need a password and an administrative password in order to log in as an administrator using RDP. I'm going to need that password. So by resetting the password here, I know now what the password is, and now I can authenticate through the RDP protocol that I've now opened. All right, but it was necessary for me to reset this password to something that I know and that I could give to the application I'm going to be using to log in with RDP. So I'm going to open up another terminal here to get that going. Okay, so as my other video, I'm going to use the free RDP um, application, which again, which is just going to be the method or the software that I'm going to use to launch an RDP session, basically a remote desktop session to the um, the um, the target host, and from there we're going to go digging for a flag. All right. So I'm going to say to get free RDP started up, I'm going to say x free RDP. All right, and then first I have to say slash and then colon, and then I had this, so that's to give it my username. So we know the username is administrator. All right, then I have to say slash p colon. Well, let me see. I mean, yeah, I mean, okay, I'm gonna do it in that order because I have to first give it my username, my password, and then the IP address I want to connect to, which is going to be the target host. All right, so that password I set was hacker underscore 123 321. All right, and then put v colon, and this is I want it to take me to our target host's desktop here. All right. And let's see. And that should be everything I need to give it. All right. So let's see if we can establish a remote desktop session here. All right. I'm going to tell it yes. All right. There is our desktop. And bam, here's the flag. All right. Voila, all right. And as I always say, flag is synonymous with highly sensitive information that I can either exfiltrate, modify, delete, use your full imagination as far as what I could do with information that I should not have access to. But just so this brings me to the end of my video. So just to give a high level definition of what I achieved here. So first I logged into the Metasploit framework. All right. Did our usual setup configuration there. All right. Then once I ran the my initial enumeration with nmap, found that what was indicative of the RDP port being closed by it not being listed in the services running, but I did find that Badblue 2.7 version running on port 80, which gave me my first way of entry into the target host. All right, then I ran another nmap scan to verify that that port 3389 was indeed closed and not necessarily filtered by like a firewall application or something of the sort, which it did verify that it was closed, which was good news for me as far as then finding a way to open it, post exploitation of the bad blue web service. So anyway, search for that bad blue exploitation module, um, uh, ran that module, exploited it, got full system authority, and from there, went back into the MSF console, looked for that RDP, a specific post exploitation module, uh, did my did my configuration there. ran it, and seen that according to the module, it was open. Verified that by running that nmap scan again to make sure that now it came up as open, which it did. All right. So once I verified that, I went back into my Metasploit session, and once in there, I changed the password for the administrator account. That, well, first I had to find out that I had to see what actual um, accounts were on there. Found that it was either administrator or guest, and given the full system authority that I had, I knew that I was the administrator. All right, so then I knew that I would need, in order for me to be able to authenticate, to have a remote desktop session, I would need to give the free RDP um, a software, an username, a password, and of course the target host's IP address. However, I didn't have that password since I did not authenticate it, as the administrator by legitimate means. So to ensure that I had a password to be able to give free RDP, I changed the password to the of the account to something that I know, so I could be able to give free RDP to then connect here to the target host via RDP session. So as I said before, I don't necessarily recommend doing that because that's a very easy way of getting caught. Because again, when the real administrator does come back to try to log in and they can't, then they look through the logs and see that, well, password change was done at approximately such and such times, okay, which that's going to be a subject of a future video. Then they're going to be able to point that out as an indicator of compromise, and then it's more likely that that you're going to be discovered, or the intrusion would be discovered. All right, which we don't want. We want to always move in a stealthy way. So but anyway, took all the information. Now that I have now I have the account name, now that I have the password, and of course, from the beginning of doing my own discovery, I have the target host's IP address. I gave all this information to free RDP to establish this remote desktop session that we see now, to then jump right into the desktop and get the flag here. All right. So that brings me to the end of my video. However, and I'm thinking in my next video, I'm actually well, not in my next video. I was saying that maybe in a video in the very near future, I'm going to cover what it looks like to cover our tracks when we do produce logs in the system, how we can then erase those logs to cover our tracks, to then to get rid of as much as those indicators of compromise as possible, move in a stiff stealthy way so we can continue to pivot and move up through the attack chain, to ultimately achieve whatever our objective is for entering into the system. All right, so please like, share, and subscribe. Most importantly, show your work. And until next time, take care of yourself and God bless.